You know that moment when you open your banking app, see a decent balance, and somehow your brain still goes, yeah, but what if something happens? If you've got even $2,000 set aside and you're still anxious, you're not broken. You're just in that weird stage where your money's improving faster than your confidence can catch up. Here's the truth nobody says out loud. Once you're past pure paycheck to paycheck survival, the rules shift. It stops being about heroic last-minute fixes and starts being about quiet systems that keep you steady. And if you've built even a couple of those systems, you're probably healthier financially than you feel. So let's make this real fast. We're going to look at the signs hiding in plain sight. Then we'll talk about the 2 mistakes that make stable people feel behind. And finally, we'll lock in a simple way to prove you're getting stronger without needing a bigger salary tomorrow. A quick benchmark. If you can cover a $500 surprise without putting it on a credit card, you're already ahead of a lot of people. If you can cover a $1,000 surprise with cash and still pay rent or your mortgage on time, that's a whole different level of breathing room. That's not rich. That's not fragile. And not being fragile is the first big win. Another sign most people underrate is predictability. If your bills are on autopay, you don't overdraft, and you're not playing whack-a-mole with late fees, you built something powerful. A calm baseline. Plenty of high earners don't have that. They make more and still live in financial chaos. Calm beats chaos. Let's talk debt without making it dramatic. If you've got no credit card balance rolling month to month, or you've got it on a payoff plan where the number's actually going down, that's progress you can measure. And if the only debt you've got is a car loan or a mortgage at a single-digit rate, you're already playing a different game than someone juggling 22% interest. Here's a sign that feels boring but matters a lot. Your money has jobs, even if it's small. If you've got rent, groceries, and emergency funds separated in your head or your accounts, you're doing what financially stable people do. You're not guessing, you're assigning. And once you assign, you stop accidentally spending future security. Now look at your savings rate, not your salary. If you're consistently saving 10% of your take-home pay, that's solid. If you're closer to 15% or 20%, you're building real momentum. And if that number dips sometimes but returns to normal the next month, that's not failure, that's resilience. And it's way more valuable than one perfect month. If you're investing at all, even $50 a week, you've started the engine. And the earlier you start, the more unfair compounding gets in your favor. At a 7% average return, $200 a month for 20 years is roughly $100,000. That's not a flashy flex. That's you quietly buying future options. This week, check one number. Your bare minimum monthly cost to stay alive and housed. Add up rent or mortgage, utilities, insurance, minimum debt payments, and groceries. If you've got 1 month of that amount saved, you're building a floor. If you've got 3 months, you've built a shock absorber. If you've got 6, you've built freedom. Most people think financial health looks like a huge net worth screenshot. In real life, it looks like not panicking when the car makes a weird noise. So here are the signs you might be underestimating. If you're paying your bills on time without needing a miracle Friday paycheck, you've built cash flow stability. That's the foundation. It's like having good traction on a rainy road. You still drive carefully, but you're not spinning out every turn. If you know within about 10 minutes what your monthly expenses are, you're ahead. You don't need a perfect budget spreadsheet. If you can say, my baseline is about $3,200 a month, you can plan. People who can't estimate their own life costs are always one surprise away from stress. If you've stopped using your credit card like it's an extension of your paycheck, that's a huge shift. A card isn't evil, but rolling a balance is expensive stress. If you pay your statement balance in full most months, you've basically given yourself a permanent raise by avoiding interest. If your emergency fund exists and it's not constantly getting drained for normal life, that's a sign your spending matches your reality. Even $1,500 that says put is a win. The goal isn't a perfect number overnight. The goal is a fund that doesn't get touched unless something actually broke. And if you've got a repair plan instead of a panic plan, you're doing better than you think. Meaning, when something hits you, you don't freeze. You adjust. You cut a few things for a month or two. You pick up extra hours. You sell something. Then you rebuild. That ability to respond is financial fitness. Now let's hit a sign that's sneaky. Your money habits don't depend on motivation. If your transfers happen automatically, you've crossed a line. Because motivation fades, systems don't. If payday hits and 5% goes to savings, 10% goes to investing, and bills get paid, you've built a machine that runs even when you're tired. If you've got retirement contributions coming out of your paycheck, that's another one. People act like a 401k or Roth IRA is for later. But really it's for not getting trapped. Even $100 per paycheck adds up fast over years. 2 paychecks a month means $200 a month. Over 10 years at 7%, that's around $35,000 to $40,000, even before you count increases. And if you're getting an employer match, that's a sign you're taking free money. A common match is 3% to 6%. On a $60,000 salary, 3% is $1,800 a year. If you're not taking it, you're leaving $1,800 on the table. That's not a character flaw, it's just a fixable leak. Here's one place people misread their own progress: net worth swings. If you've got investments and your balance drops during a rough market, it can feel like you're losing. But price swings aren't the same as your plan breaking. If your timeline's 10+ years, volatility is normal. The real sign of health is whether you keep contributing anyway. A common mistake is thinking you need to wait until you feel ready to invest. The better approach is starting small and automatic because consistency matters more than confidence. Confidence shows up after you've watched yourself follow through for 6 months. Another common mistake is obsessing over tiny spending while ignoring big fixed costs. People will argue with themselves over a $6 coffee while paying $900 too much in rent, or driving a car payment that eats 18% of their take-home pay. The better approach is simple. Focus your energy where it actually moves your life. Here's a quick scorecard you can run in your head. If your housing cost is around 25% to 35% of your take-home pay, you're usually in a workable zone. If it's 45% or more, you might be doing fine day-to-day, but it's harder to build anything. That doesn't mean you failed. It just means the math is tighter and you'll need stronger systems. If your total minimum debt payments are under 10% of take-home pay, you've got room. If they're 20% plus, you can still win, but you've got to be more deliberate. That's not shame. That's just the dashboard light coming on. If you can save at least 10% consistently, you're building. If you can push toward 15% to 20%, you're accelerating. If you're below that right now, it doesn't mean you're bad with money. It usually means you've got a big fixed cost problem or a low income problem, and those are solvable in different ways. Now, I want to make this feel personal with a quick story. Imagine 2 people, same age, both 30. Person A makes $120,000, but they've got a $900 car payment, they eat out constantly, and they keep $800 in their checking account because money comes in anyway. They look successful, they feel stressed. Person B makes $65,000. They've got $4,000 in an emergency fund, they invest $300 a month automatically, and their bills are boring and predictable. They don't look flashy. They sleep better. If you're closer to person B, you're financially healthier than you think, even if your salary isn't the one people brag about. Because financial health is mostly about your margin. Margin means you can make a mistake and your whole month doesn't explode. Margin means you can say no to something you don't want. Margin means a surprise bill is annoying, not life-altering. So let's talk about a sign that practically screams healthy, but people miss it. You've got options. If you can take a day off without your bank account going negative, that's an option. If you can switch jobs without needing a payday loan, that's an option. If you can help a family member with a one-time $200 thing and still be fine, that's an option. Options are what money's supposed to buy you. And here's another one. You've stopped needing external validation. If you're not upgrading everything the moment you get a raise, that's maturity. Lifestyle creep is quiet. You don't notice it because each upgrade feels reasonable. Then 5 years later, you're earning more and somehow saving less. A simple way to fight that is to keep your lifestyle one step behind your income. Not 5 steps. Not living like you're miserable. Just one step. That one gap is where investing lives. That gap turns into your future. If you're enjoying your life and still saving, that's a sign you've got balance. People underestimate how rare that is. Now, one sentence of realism. Some people are doing everything right and still feel squeezed because costs are brutal in their area. That's why the next signs aren't about perfection. They're about direction. If your debt is moving down over time, you're on track. If your savings is moving up over time, you're on track. If your investing is happening consistently, you're on track. Direction beats drama. Let's run another quick math moment so you can stop guessing. If you invest $500 a month and your average return is 7%, in 10 years, you're around $85,000. In 20 years, you're around $260,000. If you raise that to $1,000 a month, those numbers roughly double. That's not magic, that's repetition. So when someone says, "I don't feel like I'm doing enough," I want to ask, are you repeating the right actions? Because the right actions are boring. Pay yourself first. Keep fixed costs reasonable. Pay down high-interest debt. Automate investing. Increase income over time. Don't blow up the plan when your emotions spike. If that's you, you're healthier than you think. Now let's talk about the two traps that make financially stable people feel unstable. Trap 1 is comparing your behind-the-scenes to someone else's highlight reel. You see vacations, cars, new house posts. You don't see credit card balances, family help, or the fact that they might be saving 2% and calling it fine. Your scoreboard has to be yours. Trap 2 is confusing cash with safety. Cash feels safe because it doesn't move. But if your whole future is sitting in a savings account, earning 0.5% to 4% while inflation eats purchasing power, you're paying a hidden tax. Having cash is smart. Having only cash is usually fear dressed up as caution. A better approach is having layers. Layer 1 is your checking for bills. Layer 2 is your emergency fund, often 3 to 6 months of baseline expenses. Layer 3 is investing for long-term goals. When your money has layers, you stop asking one pile of dollars to do everything. And that's when your brain calms down. Because a lot of anxiety is just unclear structure. Now, I want to give you something you can actually do with this. This week, set up one automatic transfer that happens the day after payday, even if it's $25. Send it to a savings account if you're building your emergency fund, or to an investment account if your safety net's already solid. The amount matters less than the automation because you're building identity. I'm someone who pays future me first. If you already automate, great. Make it slightly harder to break. Remove the app from your home screen. Turn off market notifications. Stop letting your emotions sit in the driver's seat. Here's another sign you're healthier than you think. You've got adult money boundaries. You don't loan money you can't afford to lose. You don't co-sign things because someone guilted you. You can say, "I can't do that," without writing a 5-paragraph apology. That's financial health too. And if you've got insurance in place, you're protecting your progress. I'm not talking about 12 fancy policies. I mean the basics. Health coverage, car insurance if you drive, renters or homeowners coverage, and maybe term life if someone depends on your income. Protecting what you've built is part of the game once you've got something to lose. Now let's make sure you're not missing a simple win. Fees. If you've got an investing account and you're paying high fees, it can quietly eat thousands over time. A 1% fee doesn't sound like much. On $100,000, that's $1,000 a year. Over decades, it's way more than that because it also steals compounding. Low-cost index funds and low-fee accounts aren't sexy, but they're a real advantage. If you've checked your credit score in the last year and you know it's in a decent range, that's another health sign. Not because you want to borrow for fun. Because good credit lowers the cost of life when you do need a loan, an apartment, or sometimes even insurance pricing. A score around 700 plus generally puts you in a strong position. If you're at 650 and rising, that's still progress you can build on. Now, let's bring this home with a simple decision tree that tells you what healthy looks like for you. If you've got less than 1 month of baseline expenses in cash, your next win is building that first month. That's your floor. Even $100 a paycheck gets you there faster than you think. If you've got 1 to 3 months saved, you're in the shock absorber phase. Your next win is getting to 3 months and knocking out any high-interest debt, especially anything above 10% to 12%. If you've got 3 to 6 months saved and you're not carrying credit card debt, you're in builder mode. Your next win is consistent investing and keeping fixed costs from ballooning. If you've got 6 months saved and you're investing 15% to 20% of your take-home pay, you're not just healthy. You're dangerous in a good way. Time's doing heavy lifting for you now. And if you're thinking, I'm not there yet, good. That means there's a clear next target, not a vague feeling. This week, pick one leak and plug it for 30 days.